Hi everyone, and welcome to an extra special episode of Hit Your Numbers. This week, James is joined by Richard Washington. If you don't know who Richard is, he is the founder of Tick Talent, who helps early stage tech founders avoid painful mishires. He's also the host of What Makes You Tick, the podcast. In part one, you are going to get to know Richard and why he is the go-to person when it comes to hiring. And in part two, if you are looking for a job or if you are hiring salespeople, you are going to get a ton of information about what to add and take away from a CV, what to look at when you're looking at CVs. And also he talks about the 4 types of hires. Really, really fascinating. These are great episodes and you are going to learn a lot, and we hope you enjoy. Oh, and one more thing. Midway through, I make an appearance to give you a special discount for the Sales University. So if you want to access over 400 sales lessons, become a top seller, and get one-to-one coaching with James himself, we have an offer for you. Right, on to the podcast. All right, everyone, I'm super excited to have this conversation today. Richard, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
It's a pleasure, James. I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing very well. And we just realised that we're about 11 minutes away from each other. We probably could have done this in the garden with an Aperol Spritz.
Right, immediately stop recording and let's make that happen.
I know, that's got to be a session, right? Barbecue, Aperol, Friday afternoon.
Do you know what? I bought one of those little dinghies with the tiny outboard motors on it, and I called it Spritz. So maybe the next episode we'll do from the dinghy.
That'd be really cool. How many different locations can we record a podcast from? That'd be pretty cool.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, if that doesn't grab people's attention.
Yeah, exactly. BBC News, two podcast idiots drowned.
Yes. After 3 bottles of Aperol. What a way to go. Anyway, before we digress, super excited to have this conversation. So anyone that's listening, today we're going to be talking about 2 topics close to Richard and myself. So one of those is, if you're currently looking for a role, if you're an AE, what mistakes can you avoid? Like, we've all been there, we've been burnt, we've made the mistakes. So is there any like tactical advice we can give you to make sure that doesn't happen again? And then also, like, if you're a hiring manager, if you're a VP of sales, head of sales, you're looking for great talent, Rich is talking about something at the moment I think is so relevant, so important, and really interested to pick his brains on that and maybe share some of that with you today. So yeah, we're going to jump into that conversation in just a second. But because we're talking about hiring, I wanted to kick us off, Rich, if that's okay. I've got some like rapid fire questions, and it's typically how I start interviews. So whenever I've been hiring SDRs or AEs, I usually ask these 4 questions right at the beginning of the first stage interview, just to kind of get us into conversation. So I've got a couple of questions. Are you ready?
I am ready. I hope I get
Right.
the job.
We'll see. We're going to be putting you through your paces today, and the listeners will be making the decision. So my first question for you is, what is your favorite meal?
Spaghetti bolognese.
Really?
I know. Yeah. Grew up, it was like my family's favorite meal. If we were going to cook that, it was the best thing. And then when I met my wife's dad for the first time, who's Italian in Italy, who speaks no English, I made the brave decision to cook a spaghetti bolognese. And he said 10 on 10. So I'm in the family and we're now married. It works.
You're now Italian, basically. You know, if you're getting a 10 out of 10 from an Italian on an Italian dish, I mean, completed it, mate, right?
I think I just couldn't go wrong with Italian ingredients, to be honest. It was probably terrible, but it was kind.
Yeah. Did you cook it in Italy or did you cook it in the UK?
In Italy, yeah, in a strange kitchen, but it was using the best ingredients, and it was a beautiful moment.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, my favorite meal of all time is pizza. For the last 6 years, I've dedicated a day. I call it Pizza Friday. Wherever we are in the world, if we're in Iceland, Caribbean, and Asia, it's always a Friday with a pizza, Aperol Spritz, whatever time of year it is. Just for me, perfect combination.
Top toppings?
A meat feast. So yeah, bit of chorizo, pepperoni, salami, nduja. I never know if I'm pronouncing that right, but
yeah, perfect. Love a bit of nduja.
Yeah, so good. Cool. All right. So, favorite meal done. What's the best holiday you've ever been on?
I was actually talking to my wife about this just yesterday. We collectively agree that it's Vietnam, really closely followed by Thailand second, but Vietnam was just the most beautiful place. The culture, the food. It's got like 2 UNESCO World Heritage sites. I think it's one of the best places on planet Earth. Have you been?
Not Vietnam. We went to Thailand for a couple of weeks, did Bangkok for a few days, and then did an Airbnb in Koh Samui, which was awesome for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Put on a lot of weight, ate a lot of curries.
Yeah, exactly. We went to Koh Samui for our honeymoon. This is why we said like probably Thailand number two. They're both just
Yeah,
so beautiful. I want to do all of Southeast Asia. Whenever you say to like
yeah,
you've been to sort of Southeast Asia, people go, "What about Malaysia and what about Laos?" And you're like, "Oh, I really want to go to all these places." So it's definitely
yeah.
part of the goal to build a very successful business that gives the freedom to spend a bunch of time traveling the world and go and see more of Southeast Asia.
100%. What about favorite movie of all time?
Oh, it's really hard because what I've realized, this is like if you ask someone their favorite color, it's probably a decision you made when you were like 5.
Yeah,
So I'd probably say like, Forrest Gump or Shawshank Redemption or one of these films. But like I made that decision so long ago. I think that a lot of these the really talented people who work in movies now are working in TV, right? And so one of the seasons I saw recently that just blew my mind, or like programs, was Yellowstone, and it reminded me of like how much I used to love Kevin Costner as a kid growing up, and like random films like Dances with Wolves, and I liked Waterworld. But I think anything with Tom Hanks, yeah, I don't think you can really go wrong. How about yourself?
yeah. I mean, Forrest Gump is a good one. And actually, if there's any salespeople listening, if you're getting ghosted by a prospect, go to LinkedIn, go to send them a message, hit the GIFs. Okay, type in wave, and there's this GIF of Forrest Gump waving on the back of a shrimp boat.
Yeah.
Like the response rate is unreal, unreal. People will crack up, they'll laugh, and they'll reply. So yeah, little tip there for you
What would you
sellers. But
if you were to estimate what response rate you would get from a Forrest Gump wave GIF? What would you say?
I would say like high 80%. Like a buddy of mine, he sends me screenshots now of just him sending Forrest Gump waves at people and people replying. It's kind of this thing we got going on. Anyone who views my profile, if they're ICP, you're getting a Forrest Gump wave. You're not getting a
Yeah,
sales pitch.
yeah.
I just love it. I think it's yeah, absolutely. All right, last question for you before we jump into why everyone's here. Ideal day off. You can do anything.
Yeah, on a boat. On a boat, probably with some Pinot or an Aperol, just maybe heading out to the Isle of Wight for the day, just pottering around, jumping in the sea, maybe a little bit of fishing, just away from land would be the dream for me. How about you?
That sounds fantastic. Well, I've got a 15-month-old boy now, so yeah, just doing anything and everything with him.
That sounds amazing. But I would love to just ask you a question if you don't mind, if I can flip
Yeah, go for
a
it.
bit cheeky and flip the interview. So
Mm.
you asked me 4 questions, which you always ask in terms of your own interviews. Why do you do that at the start of an interview?
I think when you're jumping on an interview, sometimes you don't really know what to expect. Like a lot of hiring managers aren't very good at like setting an agenda or setting expectation of what's happening on that call, what they're looking for, that kind of stuff. So it can be quite overwhelming, and I would hate to miss out on great talent because they're like super nervous and don't know what to expect. So I like to just make them feel really comfortable. And those 4 questions for me just makes everyone realize, okay, like I'm not going to get grilled straight away. I'm like priming them into a conversation that I want to be having with them, but I don't want them to feel like nervous about the conversation. The reason I'm hiring is I'm trying to grow the business. I'm trying to, solve a problem. I'm looking for great people, and some people aren't great at interviews, but they can be fantastic salespeople.
Mm,
So I just want to make them feel a bit comfortable when they get into that conversation. And also, I want to understand a bit about them personally. Like if I've got a great team and they typically all enjoy doing certain things, and this person, like, I don't know, is into completely different things, they might feel like personality isn't aligned and things like that. And, again, I've seen people really struggle in companies from like a culture perspective is, everyone's out doing one thing and this person isn't interested in those things and they start to feel left out. And yeah, I don't know. There's lots of reasons why I do it, but I just think it's a nice way to start the conversation personally.
have you ever ruled anyone out after they've asked those questions?
No, nobody's given me anything wild yet. Anyway, I guess it's always time, right? But when I do hear certain things, I'll then during the interview process, I'll get them on a call with a specific rep on the team and just say, hey, look, just really want to make sure we're bringing in the right people. Can you just have a chat with this person and just see how you would think they would fit in? Because I value your opinion.
Yeah,
So yeah, like sometimes I'll hear something and I'll just be like, I need to double check on this
yeah.
just to make sure that I'm not going to go and spend a load of time and effort bringing somebody in and they're going to have a rubbish time because they're not going to be able to like connect with their peers.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. That piece of making them feel comfortable is particularly important, because if you think about the face-to-face scenario, like we grew up in a world where we went to the office 5 days a week, right? We
Yep.
did that for 12 years. It was the normal thing to go and do. So you did a lot
Yeah.
of those interviews in person. And so someone would come into your office and you used to be able to, like, the receptionist would welcome them when they were sitting waiting for the interview. Probably some of your really great cultural champions are walking down the stairs, walking through reception and saying, "Hey, how are you? Can I get you anything?" They feel a bit
Yeah.
like nice straight away, or maybe they don't. And they're like, "This is red flags, red flags." And then you bring them to the room, you offer them a water. It's like those sorts of fundamental things that then they're already a bit warm, but they're still quite nervous because it's an interview setting. But like they've gone through all of those steps, physically getting ready, traveling in, they're getting prepped. This could be on a Zoom call, which is probably like the
Hmm.
majority of these interviews, I would guess, for a lot of businesses today, would be they've just jumped in from whatever's happening in their life into their probably not like, perfectly constructed office space with maybe lots of distractions. And then you're just going straight into questions. Why do you want to join the business? What do you know about our business? Tell me a bit about our value proposition. All these sorts of stuff that a lot of people would just go to in terms of default, and a lot of people turning up maybe at the hiring manager late for that interview in a
Yeah.
rush because they're bringing their stuff into the call. So I think that creating that space and setting the right tone in the start of an interview is absolutely fundamental, because we just don't really create that comfort. And like you say, it's not even that people are bad at interviewing, they're just not used to it. You
Yeah.
know, they're just not used to doing it. And if they are used to doing it, maybe you don't want them.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah.
So it's probably really good that they haven't interviewed for a couple of years, and that maybe they didn't even need to do an interview in the last one because they got a referral in because someone worked there and they wanted to bring them with them. That would be a positive thing, right?
Yeah. Also, like hiring great people is also like a sales process,
Yeah,
right? So
100%.
when I'm out selling tech, SaaS services, whatever it might be, like it's bi-directional. If it's a discovery call, it's for both of us to agree a fit.
Yeah,
I think unfortunately a lot of hiring managers are like, hey, I need to grill this person because I have my own agenda.
yeah,
But sellers, like our job is to challenge the hiring manager. Like one of my favorite questions to get a rep to ask, like when I'm like coaching them now, I'm like, hey, when you go into that interview, like what's really important for you? Like what sucks at the moment? I get no training, no coaching. Well, what should be your top question when they say, hey, what questions have you got for me? Not how much holiday do I get? How does the compensation plan work? It's like, hey, Richard, can you walk me through one of the coaching plans that you're working on with one of your sellers who's struggling at the moment? How did you identify that problem? What are you doing to solve it? How often do you meet? Can you just walk me through that process, please?
yeah,
Unfortunately, most people are going to freeze
yeah,
because they're not doing it. And that is an opportunity for you to qualify them, right? It's bi-directional. So treat it as a sales process. So like you wouldn't jump onto a discovery call and start interrogating a prospect. There's an icebreaker. It's usually personalized. Hey, Rich, I noticed this. Congrats. Tell me a bit more about that before we jump into the call. Then
yeah,
there's an agenda. Then's discovery.
yeah,
So you just got to treat it both sides, the hiring manager and the seller going for the role. You have to treat it like you would a sales process. Otherwise, it's going to feel really kind of one way,
yeah.
and it's not going to help you, go through that process very effectively.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
yeah, particularly in large organizations where it's very process driven and they've gone like, this is how we interview. They often don't give those people the creativity or the license to actually go and do those things. They have to just fill in a box. Probably that's going to be recorded. That might just get uploaded into the ATS solution. So I think a lot of people just go like super professional mode. I used to call it like being a cardboard cutout version of yourself, right? And I think the more human you are, then the more human you're going to get that person to be, which is what you need them to be if they're going to be good salespeople. So
Yeah.
getting to the person rather than the product, because you're basically buying a product, right? When you're hiring, you're buying a product. And then if you're a person, you're choosing a home for you as a product who understands how to solve a load of complex challenges. You're finding a place where you can go and do those things really well and grow and learn a load of new skills and learn to solve new challenges. So I think that alignment piece is a really good word, and I think it is just about people dropping the ego and going like, I might be whatever level in the business, but you're going to see me as Richard, not me as business unit director of this organization. I think that's really, really powerful. Would you like to hear the question I used to ask when I was
Yeah, I'd love to.
leading business
Yeah,
unit?
go for it.
So,
Hit us.
like most people, I didn't get much training when I first started in terms of how to do interviews. I actually had lots of leadership training, but this was like a thing that they just threw us in the deep end. And I used to ask, like, what's your biggest weakness, and where do you see yourself in 3 years, and all the stuff that you would Google, right? And so people spend all their hours learning how to respond to, well, my biggest weakness used to be this, but then I worked on this, blah, all this nonsense.
Yeah.
So what I realized is by asking lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of questions, probably hundreds of thousands of questions to thousands of people, to hire about 900 people over a 12-year period for my own business units, was this question, after I'd created a level of comfort that they felt very comfortable, I would do an upfront deal with them, which is I would say, look, before we start this, so it's worth your time and it's worth my time, I'd like to make an upfront contract with you, if you don't mind. Just let's do a deal, which is I'd like you to be as honest with me as you would be with the person you're closest to in the world. So don't feel like this is an interview to pass. Don't feel like this is, you want to try and give me the perfect answer. Just be like totally yourself, be totally honest. We'll get a much better outcome. And if you ask me a question, I'll be totally honest back. And then the second part is be yourself on purpose. Don't feel like you have to try and be the perfect fit for us. Just be you on purpose. I would hate that we come away from this process going, I just didn't really see enough personality or energy or drive because you held it back. Just be how you are. And if I tell you, actually, you're a bit too much for our culture, you would hate working with us because we'd be trying to box you in and try to cut away the things that make you unique. This is about finding fit. And then we would shake hands. And then I would say, first question, from birth to being in this room today, tell me the story of your life. Which seems like
That's
a nuts question.
Yeah.
And I don't think many people have been asked that by anyone in their life, let alone some random person that they're going in for an interview. But the things that you would find out about people in terms of their life that would be brilliant things for you to drill into and understand more detailed for the rest of the interview. But the way they tell the story, what they focus on, what they skip, what they get excited by, where the emotion comes in. And it would be unbelievable the amount of insight, as well as the human connection and the trust that you would build when you ask that question. Now, you have to do the upfront contract part, because if you just went, hey, James, welcome to the interview, how have you found it? What's your favorite meal? Like, you love pizza? I love pizzas too. Cool. From birth, they'll be like,
Yeah.
what are you talking
Yeah.
about?
Wow. Is this
Yeah,
an AE interview, or is this just like, am I
yeah,
being
exactly.
interviewed for like
Exactly.
a book or something, right?
But
Yeah.
it's like sales 101, right? If you can basically ask anyone anything if you ask for their permission, right?
Yeah.
And if you create the right expectation. And I would recommend for everyone, if you do the proper upfront teeing up, the priming part, that's a really good question to ask. And also, if you are a candidate, you're someone looking for your next move, or just when you want to take this into your next interview, is have a way to describe your life story. And you might have a different one for your personal life, your personal journey as a human, and then you might have one for your career, but make sure that career story is good. So many people, if you just said, tell me your career story, so it's like the story of your life from birth to being in this room today. If you said, tell me your career story, they go, well, what I did is I first started out for university and I did a psychology degree, and then I got a job in telemarketing. I did that for 2 years, and then I left that because it's like, oh my God, this is the most boring thing I've ever had in my life. They didn't want to answer it,
Yeah.
but they feel like that's like how you would answer that question. So you ask something very different about their life to be at the point. I mean, this is just a part of their journey. For me, I've never found a better question to ask than that, to create a completely different level of conversation, engagement, and trust that meant the entire rest of that interview felt like you were talking to someone that you had this like level of trust and connection with and engagement with, that I knew that if that conversation was good after that point, this is going to be a person who will be phenomenal in our business. And there's loads of things
Yeah.
that they could do that would make me go, oof, too, like if they really skipped things, and if they were really rushed, or if they would get a bit rude, or if they got really defensive, or if they got really angry, like the random things that came out. Obviously, you'd still drill into it, but I think it's a perfect question.
Yeah, I love that. I'm just taking note of that one, and yeah, I think it's great. And look, we want to hear the story. We want to understand everything about you
Yeah,
because we want to make sure that we're a good fit as well, right? Like you
100%.
mentioned earlier. And if we're not, then we don't want to put a square peg into a round hole. We want to
Yeah,
save everybody the time, effort, and pain of going through that process. Yeah,
yeah, 100%.
um, I
100%.
love that.
Hi guys, it's just me again. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, I have a offer for you. So this is 25% off advanced and elite memberships to the Sales University. That gives you access to over 400 sales lessons, one-to-one coaching, direct access to James, rapid feedback, access to new courses, AI sales assistance, weekly live training, sales shorts, boot camps, 30 resources, that's playbook, cheat sheets, you name it, access to the community, all webinars, and of course our Hit Your Numbers newsletter. Now, if you're ready to sign up, the discount code is podcast, but don't forget there is a free plan. So go to therevenueenabler.com, visit Get Started for free at the top. That is going to take you to our plans and pricing page, and there you'll be able to see everything that you get in each membership. What are you waiting for? Right, now back to the episode.
What I found is, by the way, from a lot of those asking that question is people always remember that question for the rest of their life, and they'll tell you about it. And like I'll meet up with people that I hired and worked with and then became friends, or we lost touch, and they'll reference that because I think it was a really good chance for them to reflect. And a lot of people just don't get that chance to. So they appreciate good questions because it makes them think differently about their life. And I think people always, they can get a lot of value from a good question. And if you're a good salesperson, if you're working with in a place that values you and values good questions, and it makes you think differently about your life and differently about your perspective, that's probably a place that you can learn a load of really cool skills that you don't currently have today.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I want to I didn't want to interrupt you there. I wanted to kind of click back on to something you said just before we went into that question, which I think is also pretty relevant. So we've got like this explosion of conversational intelligence tools, like calls that the tech that will join your calls, especially like A's and SDRs, and it will help like provide coaching insights to sales leaders to close seller skill gaps. And I just think there's a huge opportunity for orgs to be using tools like Gong and have those calls recorded, like those interviews recorded. Like, and this is only good like if you've got like, well, I guess you could do it if you're like the only hiring like sales leader, but like imagine you've got like a CRO, you've got some regional VPs of sales, and then you've got a bunch of frontline managers, and those frontline managers are maybe doing the first interview. If you're a regional VP, like I'd want to have those frontline managers send me those Gong recordings so I can listen to them and coach them on, hey, I think you did a fantastic job, like starting the call, you made them feel really, really comfortable. They said something about this, and I just felt like you skimmed over it, and I think we could have gone a little bit deeper into that to potentially avoid taking them into a second round interview, because they're going to be doing an assessment center with 2 AEs and SDR and yourself, and that's an expensive interview if they're not a good fit. And how do we again close our frontline manager skill gaps to find the talent that's right for our context? So like, what tech are we using to not just empower our sellers to sell more effectively, but to our hiring managers, to our frontline managers, that they're doing their role as effective as they physically can. Like, if you think it's tough out there, sellers, that you get no training coaching from your business, your company, wait to become a leader. It's even less.
82% of managers get zero training. They're called accidental managers. It's crazy, the gap. I think there's a warning sticker with that, which is if you do the interview in the way that I do it, and that I trained my teams to do it, you're finding out some really personal stuff about people that I wouldn't personally, if I was in that situation as a candidate, feel comfortable being recorded. So I think that would work really well for potentially like an early stage call. Because obviously that question is a final stage interview question, right? That's not like, hey, welcome to the business. You applied for the job. Tell me about your life story. This is like final stage. We've already decided you are a great fit for the business. We've decided that you are capable. This is just about making sure that we're really aligned. That's why I would do that at that stage. So I think recording like the capabilities part of it, I definitely think there should be some kind of assessment with a scorecard for sure, and maybe the upfront part. But I would potentially always consider, in fact, I would just definitely recommend it, is that there should be a part of the interview where you're really finding out about the person that's just you and them. One-to-one, deep connection, total trust, therapy style. I'll never repeat the story that you tell me. This is about us forming a connection.
And you're selling there, right? You're selling what it's going to be like. What's life going to be like from day one? I genuinely care, want to get to know you. What did I hear the other day as I was doom scrolling LinkedIn? Do you know what? Actually, I think, Richard, I think it was on one of your podcasts, and I can't remember the chap's name, but he was like, if you're 2 years in to working with somebody and you don't know like their other half's name and do they have kids and things like that.
Yeah,
Like,
Chris Bear.
yeah, like there's some, there's a big problem there, right? I thought I recognized it. Yeah. So yeah, like put your best foot forward, right? It's not just about qualifying candidates, it's about selling. Why should they come and work for you instead of
Yeah.
going to a MongoDB, a HubSpot, a Snowflake,
Yeah.
which are probably paying a little bit more,
Yeah. But I'm
right?
just treated like another revenue engine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you talk about stories, we're probably like 20, 30 minutes into this conversation, but let's get into your story, right? Because I think we've spoken about some really good stuff. I think let's understand where that's come from. I'm sure you're like, most of the sales leaders listening to this, you've been burnt, had, made mistakes, learned from them. They're all learning opportunities. And that's obviously helped you build up this expertise and knowledge over time. So let's hear like the story of Richard Washington, and then we can kind of just jump into some different conversations.
Yeah, sure. The first part of my career, I would probably say, is like that I didn't really work that hard at university. I just picked what I thought was a nice university at Bournemouth and just did a leisure marketing degree. So I never really found a thing that I was totally passionate about. That's not true. I was ridiculously passionate about Football Manager. And I'm not being funny. That game, anyone that's played that game, and I like obsessively played that game from like CM2 when I was like a kid on the Amiga, all the way through to like being probably 24 years old. I think taught me a huge amount. I didn't really realize it at the time, but so much about working with teams, leading teams, spotting talent, like looking about metrics, optimizing everything, competitiveness, taking like Nuneaton to the Premier League. I won't go into too much detail. People who are listening who have played the game will understand, or have played their own version of their Football Manager. But that obsession over that thing, I think, set the foundation for me. So when I left university with a Desmond, which is a tutu for anyone that's not from the UK, is I was like, well, what am I going to do with my life? I can surely, with my degree, even though it's just a Desmond, I can go and get a 30 grand a year job, right? No. So I was going into interviews, getting rejected, going, well, I don't have the experience. So I've got all this theory, but I don't have experience. So I did what a lot of people do, which is they go and work in a nightclub. So I worked in a Bournemouth nightclub as the VIP host. Awesome first day, putting wristbands on the front door on like West Ham and Portsmouth Football Club, like Andy Cole and Teddy Sheringham. I'm like, this is the best thing in the world. Did that for 9 months, got totally disillusioned, like on a Wednesday night in January, stood on the front door at -2 degrees with a bunch of drunk people. And I'm just going, what on earth am I doing with my life? I'm surrounded by people who are in their mid-30s who have just got stuck in this and they need to do it because it pays the bills. I don't want to be one of these people. So I went on this big drive to go, I need to find a place I can learn skills. So I found this business that was an outsourced go-to-market agency. We called it was just like called telemarketing and lead generation back in the day, and joined them as a lead generation agent. Was really good. Did that very, very quickly, got up to a really top performer within that business, was super competitive, like loved the gamification, all that computer stuff that I'd obsessed over. And then quite quickly became a leader after 9 months running teams. Learned a load of very painful lessons there about what I didn't know about how to lead people. Then I, after 3 years, became an operations manager, so managing the managers. Most of those people were older than me, and that were my coaches and mentors when I joined the business. That was a really hard transition. So I learned how to manage managers and run a whole business unit. And then after about another 4 years, I became a business unit director. So running the whole site, sales, the operations, the account management side, the whole thing, P&L responsibility. And that was the other rude awakening, was right now I'm suddenly responsible for a sales team, but I've not really sold anything. I was doing like SDR type work. How on earth do I learn that? So that was a really hard thing for me to try and bridge that skill gap and learn all of the deal reviewing and sales forecasting and executive client management. And then I got to travel the world. So as part of that business's growth from about 50 when I was first in there, over a 12-year period, so 450 around the world, we opened up sites in Barcelona. So I was involved in opening up that site, which was incredible. Still got lots of friends and clients now today out in Barcelona from just that 3 months in 2009. Spent some time in Auckland when we opened that office, as well as a year in Miami, hence the Fins helmet. In 2017, when we bought a business in Fort Lauderdale and then moved them with a goal to grow from like 30 to 80 people. So that was a
Nice.
really amazing experience. But I burned out from that after I realized, actually, I had a big life event change, which was my sister passed away and she was only 37. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? I've just been chasing a career and I haven't really done anything outside of work. I'd had a good career and was successful, but I wasn't really fulfilled. So I went, right, after that point, let me go and find what I really want to go and do. So then I created, after taking redundancy from that business, a very, very unsuccessful startup, which was an e-commerce art business.
Nice.
Learned that if you just watch YouTube videos about how to go and do something, they're all just trying to sell you a course, and you'll just
Oh
end
yeah.
up being very busy for 9 months and not actually make much money. So,
Yeah.
so after doing
They'll
that for
make a load of money though.
yeah, they'll make money from me. Exactly. Yeah. If you watch a YouTube
Yeah.
video where they're trying to sell you on how to go and make money, then there you are the product.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I found this amazing entrepreneur who I'd worked with about 8 years before, who was a proper entrepreneur, ran a really big business in Bournemouth, the largest property franchise in the whole of the UK with like 600 properties. And he was just starting to work with this business in London, which is a D2C agency. And I said, it's my dream to work with you, Steve. And one day start a business with you. I'm available. Would you like to meet? And he said, yeah, let's do it. So we met. He said, I don't have a job for you, but I've got this big business problem, which is we've got horrendous culture in the business started to manifest itself. Our CEO spending half of her time in dealing with people issues or in recruitment. Could you help us to fix that? I said, yeah, of course. That's what I've done. Here's 3 slides. Here would be how I recruit. Here would be how I onboard. Here would be how I would develop leaders. This is my process for those 3 things. So then we went for it. Over like a 3-year period, we built that business up from like 10 to 30 people. And then COVID hit. And we were like, right, well, we definitely want to make this thing happen. What's the right business for us to do together? So he said, you've got a talent for talent. We're doing this very differently from the rest of the market. I've never seen anything like it before. These weird questions that you ask, the way that we build presentations when we invite people in and make them feel really comfortable and sell to them first. This is a product. We could probably sell this to customers. So we started selling it to customers, did that for a year. It was successful enough for me to say, I want to go and do this full time. And he said, let's just keep a mentoring relationship for a couple of years, which we did. And then I started my own business called Tick Talent about 2 years ago, which has taken me onto a completely different life journey than I was on before, building from all of those skills around recruitment, leadership, development, the sales and the tech industry knowledge that I'd had, but then learning the cool D2C marketing agency side, learning to become an entrepreneur, which set me up for what we have today, which is a small but mighty recruitment agency who find entrepreneurial managers, sellers, and executives for early stage tech startups.
What a story that is. And I think a lot of us will probably resonate with that. And I don't want to jump right now into what you just said there, because I think you're doing something really cool and I want to get to it in just a minute. But your story is really interesting and it's very similar to mine, although I can skip out the university part because I didn't even get that far at school. I had a pretty tough upbringing, left school with not many qualifications. And yeah, I think a lot of us stumble into sales, and that's why I don't know if I'll ever get to it, but I'd love to figure a way out of sales being part of school education. I think that'd just be such a great thing because, you know, we drive the economy and, you know, we've built great careers. So many people have built such great careers and lives for themselves and their families. I just think it's bonkers that we just don't have any of this going on at school.
Yeah.
You know, so I'd love to see that in school a bit more. And I don't know what it would take to get it to happen, but maybe if I find some time later in life, I'd love to figure that out and, you know, leave that as a mark.
Do you know what's insane? Is the lack of communications training, right? If you think about like teaching kids how to sell, that really starts with understanding self-awareness and communication, right? When did you first learn communication?
I talk about it all of the time. I never see it in any sales onboarding plans. It's
Yeah.
never been in any like major formal training. Like I was lucky enough, one company did a proper training program that was BT, where they brought in Huthwaite and we did spin selling.
Yeah.
And part of that was the ICE framework,
Yeah.
which is partly like helping you become a bit of a better communicator. But nobody sat me down and said, you know, you need to be really present in the conversation, actively listening, genuinely curious, ask interesting follow-up questions, read
Yeah.
body language, like none of that kind of stuff.
So how old
Bonkers.
were you when someone actually took the time to teach you about communication?
probably 25, 26.
Yeah, I was 23. I was lucky enough to join a business that had a communications workshop, but it's the
Yeah.
first time I'd even thought like, oh, this is a thing. Like communications is mechanical. You can break this down and you can learn this thing. So that's the massive problem, right? At 23, I was lucky enough to find a business that trained me on communication. I'd gone
Yeah.
23 years of my life without ever someone teaching me how to communicate. What were the quality of my questions like? It's unbelievable. I think that's probably the place to start.
Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Don't forget there is part 2 coming soon, and that includes loads of fantastic information from Richard, especially if you are looking for a job right now or if you are hiring. Honestly, you do not want to miss this episode. It is so worth listening to. If you haven't yet, subscribe to our Hit Your Numbers newsletter. You can go to therevenueenabler.com and find the link there to subscribe. See you next week.